Sheriff Ross. We, in the arts community, we have concerns about the delivery of the funding for the arts and the arts infrastructure, and that compromises our ability to do the kind of work that you're talking about, supporting neighborhood arts, supporting reentry programs, engaging artists with our social programs and social policies. Will you stand with us when we ask for a restructuring of the arts and a recommitment to a neighborhood arts program?
Absolutely, and I've tried to demonstrate that as a member in the Board of Supervisors, not just my own personal advocacy, but also in a budgetary capacity as well too, as a leader who feels very strongly that the city is doing a job, but not the best job it possibly can in supporting the arts. When you think about, the arts institutions, nonprofit institutions, and government institutions that budget at nearly $370 million a year amongst all those groups for the arts themselves, and then the contribution by the city's general fund is essentially 15% towards that $380 million, that's really paltry when you think about it. And then when you look at the priorities that are delineated by the hotel tax fund, then the hotel tax fund, I think, needs to be stressing more of a priority of its allocation to the arts than what it is now, and that needs to have greater vigor by the electeds and by somebody like myself as sheriff who would say, I want that revenue generated in a way that's dedicated for neighborhood arts through neighborhoods, especially those that are highly neglected, and make sure that they're not pilfered for like the Department of Public Works or Rec and Park or other departments in the way that it often is.
Great, thank you.
Somebody has an asked question?
I was just curious, with your background with the police and military and all that, I just wondered how your personal politics have evolved since that time, if they have.
Actually, I went into, a long story short, I come from a very liberal-minded, progressive family, mostly growing up with a single mother who, I just told the story at a birthday bash I had on Thursday, but who used to take me to the women's rights protests and the peace marches and civil rights. So I've sort of inculcated that experience. I had a father who passed away some years ago, who was from Iran, who, unlike my mom, was a Republican, but also believed in public service. He ended up becoming a security guard to put himself through school at the University of Chicago, stayed with the YMCA's, security at YMCA, stayed with the YMCA's for 37 years, and he ended up running all of Chicago's YMCA's. And so that level of public service from both ends is something that I grew up with in my experience of something what I've been happily applying myself to do. But my politics really have always been very progressive, but I'm independent. And the benefit of having somebody independent is exactly why we've done so well with Hennessy, because he's independent too. And I'm sorry, but what we risk of some of the others who are running for sheriff is either a takeover by a consciousness of the police department or by those within the sheriff's department who may not share the same value of what reentry and rehabilitation is in a way that Hennessy has instigated. And I don't think it's worth risking going backwards. Terry.
How are you going to deal with this influx of prisoners from the state prisons that is mandated to come?
So I think one of the positions that gives me advantage in this race is that I've been chair of public safety of the Board of Supervisors now twice in my nearly 7 years in office. That's nothing to sneeze at, especially lately, because as chair of public safety, I've now had 3 hearings on prisoner realignment. Prisoner realignment is something that, for the first time, now people are beginning to talk about something in a mainstream way that they've never discussed before, and that is reentry, rehabilitation, and public safety about inmate correction. So now that the state is really imposing this on counties, supported by a Supreme Court decision of 5-4, we have to brace ourselves for an infusion of approximately 700 prisoners coming back from the state. A risk assessment has to be conducted for each one of those prisoners. My estimation is half or so, depending on the assessment, will go into incarceration in county jail. We have the capacity. We're one of the few counties that does not experience overcrowding in its jails. And the other half potentially will go into diversion or electronic monitoring, which is less expensive, and in my opinion, depending on our ability to really influence the rehabilitation of that inmate, more effective in being able to turn somebody around. So I think of it as a real test, and I think San Francisco is poised with glass half full to do a very good job. I've heard others sort of give the glass half empty approach and thinking, brace yourself, public safety is going to be challenged. And I'm not going to dismiss that concern, but I also want to make sure that we rise to the occasion in the city of what it means to be very strategic in dealing with reentry, restorative justice, dealing with people specializing in violence, dealing people who specializing in sort of repeat offenses. And those programs are not one size fits all. It requires a specialization for each case that really deserve that level of wraparound. And that's exactly what I expect to see happen. And it's going to be a real hit on us on the general fund if the state doesn't give us more funding. I'm only estimating now about 40% of funding is given to us by the state. So that could really be a hit on our general fund.
I just have one thing to say. I think you're perfect for the job, absolutely perfect. And I actually think you will be able to come up with an initiative that could work very well with the arts community, you know. And I think any one of us would be happy to sit down and brainstorm to even take what Sheriff Hennessy did and make an even bigger initiative that could actually tie in with some of these people coming back and using art and yoga and all of these kind of things to actually bolster morality and goodwill and all of that. The public safety thing that I'm concerned about, but I don't know how you feel about it or if it falls into you, is getting hit by a car. It's not a violent crime, but the amount of people that get hit by cars and get killed by cars in this city, I'm more afraid for my daughter to get killed by a car than by getting raped or mugged or beat up or having her purse stolen. And I'm just wondering where that fits into, because we just accept automobile traffic and automobile getting hit. We just accept it as, oh, that just goes along with driving an automobile. Just like we used to say, oh, you get cancer from cigarettes, but you can't smoke anywhere anymore.
Right.
So what can we do around public safety, around how terrible automobile traffic is for pedestrians in this city?
I actually know a little bit about this as it relates to the law itself. First of all, the district attorney in San Francisco has the discretion to decide on how to apply the charges when there is that level of fatality or casualty caused by a vehicular accident. Depending if it's second-degree manslaughter or depending on what the circumstances are, the DA could be a lot more forceful. Where the DA's power is limited in being able to apply a charge. And that doesn't mean, because a lot of times what the DA will do, and I know this working 9 years in the DA, is that they're afraid to lose cases. So they'll apply a charge that gets them the win, and most often. So it's a statistic they don't want to suffer in case it's one that blows by their face, blows by them and it doesn't go to their. So the state law needs to enable a change in allowing county DAs to be much more vigorous in the charging decisions of those kind of incidences. For a sheriff, we don't effectuate the law itself, but we can use the pulpit of suggesting that we do. And I would do just that. And as it relates to just wrapping up, why it meant and why I opened it up about the artist shows and exhibits I had in City Hall, the connection is something that happened years before I even decided I wanted to run for sheriff. And that is when I had the exhibit of Black Panthers, their artistry inside City Hall, a number of them, the original Black Panthers that are alive and are considerably more older now, came to me and says, not once in our life have we been inside City Hall. And when I had it of those who are ex-offenders in their art, same exact comments. So I have routinely tried to do everything I can to break down barriers, to try to bring communities that are really disparate communities that cannot trust and have good reason maybe, or whatever their reasons are, government or authority. And that's why I believe it's time that we innovate a new approach to criminal justice and enhancing the improvement of public safety at the same time. And I believe I'm the best candidate for that.
You are.
That really made my day. I feel silly.
It's okay.
Happy for you.
Tony, thank you.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate it. And if it's okay, I have an op-ed. I don't have any sexy literature, but I do have an op-ed that, if I can just share with you all, it's written by Sheriff Hennessy, why he supports me.
Here,
Here. Thank you.
just give me a few and I'll.